Welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. On today's episode, we're going to talk about an area of the hobby that I think is extremely undervalued and is very slept on, and that's reverse holos and vintage sets. And I'll explain in this video, what my thought process is and why I think that's really happening. Because you got to remember for these vintage sets, holos were always the chase cards. Everyone knows that today. Everyone knew that back then. When people were pulling holos, that was the cards that they would normally probably try to keep in a little bit better condition because cards back then still had a perceived value. With the big exception of being, legendary collection, which has amazing reverse holos. But you got to remember, until recently, the reverse holos in legendary collection were not super expensive. While they were very rare because legendary collection as a whole was rare, the reverse holos didn't demand like this huge premium they are now. And, legendary collection is the first set that we saw reverse holos. And I just want you guys to think about something, right? When it comes to reverse holos, you're guaranteed one a pack. So you're going to pull 36 reverse holos in a booster box. There's 36 packs in a booster box. Depending on the sets, base set all the way through legendary collection, there was 11 cards in a pack. For like the EX series, there's 9 cards per pack. And then all the way up to modern, now you got like 10 cards per pack. But you got to keep in mind some of these EX sets didn't have energies. Base set, which had 11 cards, had 2 energies. Modern packs have 1 energy. So just for the sake of this video, we're going to say that there's 9 character cards per pack between the 9 card boosters, the 11 card, and the 10 card. We're just going to say for this video, there's 9 character cards per pack. That means in one booster box, you're going to get 324 character cards. Out of those 324 cards, you're going to get 36 rares because you get 1 rare per pack. You're going to get 36 reverse holos because you're going to get 1 reverse holo per pack. And depending on the set, you're probably, for vintage, going to average around between 12 and 13 holos per set. So that's going to leave you between 239 to 240 uncommons and commons. So out of those 324 cards, you're only going to get 36 reverse holos. Reverse holos for these older sets, like I said, because they didn't have like a crazy high apparent value to collectors back then, they usually weren't kept in the greatest condition. So if you have the ability to pick up a lot of near mint, gem mint reverse holos, I think they're slept on a lot because you got to keep in mind what makes a lot of the holos, so sought after for these vintage sets. It's because of the artwork, right? Like we talked about that Hypno that's eating the dreams in the Aquapolis set. Artwork is amazing. It's one of my favorite of all times. But that card's in reverse holo. That card's also in rare form. And, it's just something to think about. Like, you can still get a lot of these artworks that you really love, and maybe you can't afford to pay the holo prices, but you can still afford to pay the vintage prices. And it's pretty interesting, too, when you think, well, if I wanted to just open packs, like today, how many packs would I have to open to pull every reverse holo? And just, let's just think a couple sets like Legendary Collection, Expedition, Aquapolis, Skyridge, right? Those 4 sets, Legendary Collection was like 110 cards, Expedition, 165 cards, 147 for Aquapolis, 144 for Skyridge. I'm sure a lot of you guys understand those numbers off the top of your head too, because they are such iconic sets, and especially like the amount of cards per set. And think about that for some of these sets that didn't have any energy cards in it. Yeah, Expedition base set did have energies, but like Skyridge didn't. So out of the Skyridge 144 cards, every single one of those cards came in a reverse holo. So in order to open packs and get all, 144 cards or 147 or 110, depending on the set, you would literally have to open, between 3 to 4 to 5 different booster boxes hoping in a perfect world that you don't pull any doubles of these cards in order to pull one reverse holo of each card. When you are looking at just the sheer size of the set, the chances of pulling reverse holos gets very small, And even like the big chase reverse holos, your chances of getting one in a booster box is extremely low. Your chances of pulling a holo most of the time in these sets are actually better than pulling the reverse holo you want. And I want you guys just to think like, that's a head scratcher, yes, but you got to keep in mind because you're going to pull at least 12 holos in a booster box. But when it comes to reverse holos, you have to go through your rares, your uncommons, and your commons. So just because the subset gets so much bigger, the chances of pulling one card that you're looking for in a booster box in reverse holo form, just, the chance of that drops down exponentially. It drops really fast. So it's just something to think about, guys. And I always talk about this too, right? Rarity and scarcity are so important in this hobby. And it's always important to keep looking around. Look at areas of the hobby that you think are undervalued that you can see growth in. And when it comes to reverse holos, that's one of the areas that I see as just like a huge niche of the market that really hasn't been capitalized. And maybe, what we've seen happen with reverse holos in Legendary Collection is maybe a signal of what we can expect to see in the future. That comes with a gigantic asterisk because Legendary Collection, when it comes to reverse holo, just stands on on the mountain all by itself because one, it was the first set to introduce reverse holos. Number two, if you guys are even slightly familiar with Legendary Collection, you understand how amazing those reverse holos look. So, with that said, maybe we won't really see that trickle-down effect because the Legendary Collection really does stand alone. But it's okay to at least have the conversation. And I explained it before. That's what this video is. This channel is. It's just one long conversation. So I do believe reverse holos, especially when it comes to a lot of these rare cards, you can see a decent long-term trend for reverse holos. Eventually, given enough time, there will be enough people out there who will eventually try the complete master sets of a lot of these sets, and maybe even to go one step further, people will start to try the complete graded collections of these sets. And the population reports for a lot of these reverse holos, especially when it comes to these older sets, is very low because, as you guys understand about grading, for a long time, grading wasn't always like super financially beneficial for a lot of these sets unless you got 10s. And then to go one step further, you are really only grading the holos because, like I said, reverse holos didn't really have that like big dollar amount to them. So a lot of people just never really graded them. So the populations of these cards are extremely low. Do I think that there's a huge population that potentially exists out there in like a gem mint condition? Yeah, I think there's a few cards, and we'll always see a couple hit the market, especially if we start to see the reverse holo prices increase. But as I explained to you, how hard it really is to pull individual cards out of booster boxes, yes, you get 36 per box, one per pack, but it's still like a lot harder than you think. So do I see the populations of these reverse holos in the future exploded? No, I don't see them exploding. That's why I think if you have the ability to start acquiring some, whether it's raw cards or high grade ones, I think now's your chance, because I think in between a 5 to 10 year time period for reverse holos for vintage sets, you're going to see like real big growth, because eventually all the holos that are really in gem mint condition, given enough time, will all be graded, or the large majority of those cards will all be graded. And the only new cards really trickling onto the market that people won't have will be these reverse holos, because that will just be the next step. You're going to collect your holos. Your next step will be the reverses. Then you'll probably go to the rares, and you'll trickle in all your favorite cards in between. But it's just something to think about, guys. Like I said, I just wanted to have this discussion today. But anyways, guys, if you've made it to this point of the video and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Other than that, hit the like button, and I'll catch you on the next video.